Neural pathways are group of nerve fibers which carry information between different parts of central nervous system. These are connections formed by axons and they help in conduction of information. There are two such pathways present in a brain. They are named as dorsal pathway and ventral pathway. They are also called as dorsal stream and ventral stream. Dorsal stream is involved in mapping of sound to articulation and ventral stream is involved in mapping sound to meaning. So, this is the pathway which is articulating, mapping sound to articulation, and this is the stream which is mapping sound to meaning. This pathway is also called as where pathway or vision for action. So, whatever we see, where it is located, where that object is located and what is its relation with other objects in the spatial environment, that is the information which is transferred by dorsal pathway. Whereas ventral pathway is what pathway or vision for perception or how we perceive what we are seeing. Dorsal pathway is mainly for processing information regarding location and motion and carries information related to spatial relationship between the objects. Spatial relationship means how different things are arranged in the space. And location of dorsal pathway is from primary visual cortex to parietal lobe. Parietal lobe is mainly responsible for sensory impulses. So, this is the information which is transferred from primary visual cortex, which is present in the occipital lobe, to the parietal lobe. Now, if we look at the location of these areas and try to find out where primary visual cortex is present and where parietal lobe is present. So, if you look at this picture, you can see that this area is called as the parietal lobe and this area is called as the occipital lobe, and in the occipital lobe this area is called as the visual cortex. So, that means information is going from visual cortex to parietal lobe, and as it is on the dorsal surface of the brain, so that is why it is called as dorsal pathway. It translates the information from speech input and allows us to reproduce speech patterns. So, what is the function? That it is taking the information from whatever we are hearing. Speech input means what we are hearing, and reproduce the speech pattern means it helps us to speak what we are listening to. Whereas the ventral stream is the what pathway which is vision for perception, is mainly for processing information regarding the form and identity of visual object. That means the object whatever we are seeing, what is its form and what is its identity. This information is processed by ventral stream. It originates from primary visual cortex and extends to temporal cortex. So, here we see that it was originating from primary visual cortex and going to parietal lobe, whereas ventral stream is going from primary visual cortex to temporal cortex. So, if we look at this picture, then we can see that where the ventral stream is located. Now, in this picture we can see that this part of the brain, that is the occipital lobe, which is containing the primary visual cortex area, and this area is the temporal lobe, which is lying just behind the ear part. So, ventral pathway is from occipital lobe to temporal lobe, and because it is on the ventral side of the brain, that is why it is called as ventral pathway. And the function of ventral pathway is that it helps us to give us higher level language comprehension, and it is the part which is responsible for linguistic processing of sound to meaning. So, it is that part of the brain which is helping us to identify the speech and understand the word. So, this is how these two pathways, they are helping us to speak what we hear and to understand the meaning of what we are hearing.